Are we live? Google says we're live. Awesome. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Juju Office Hours. What this is our sort of bi-monthly hangout. We just hop on online. We kind of do a little status of what everyone's working on. We show you demos of things we're working on in the alphas and betas. It's very loose. We kind of encourage people to show up and just hang out. We could talk about things, answer questions. We'll answer your questions in IRC and whatnot. Real quick, I'll do some introductions. I'm George Castro. Antonio, why don't you go next?
Yeah, I'm Antonio Zales. I work over on the ecosystem team, working to build out some solutions. That's me.
All right. Cheryl?
Hey guys, I am the Juju release manager. I'm on the core team, and so I help us get our releases out the door and fix bugs and lots of good stuff like that.
Awesome. Obviously the busiest person today. Marco, go ahead.
Hey, I'm Marco Ceppi, Juju Charmer on the Charm community team.
Rick?
Hey, Rick Harding with Juju Engineering, and basically here to see all the fun stuff that we're going to talk about today.
And the least busy guy today. Just kidding. William, you're new here. This is your first time. Why don't you introduce yourself? Maybe tell us what you're using Juju for or something interesting about you.
Sure. I'm William from the community. I actually work for LifeRay. We are looking at a Juju on OpenStack on Juju on mass deployment. So just been kind of hanging out in IRC and getting a feel for it. And glad to be here and hang out with you guys.
Awesome. I remember back in the day we had a really horrible old, I think Marco wrote it, LifeRay Charm back in the day. I don't remember.
I didn't write it. It wasn't horrible. It was actually pretty awesome.
Was it you?
No, I didn't write it. Someone else wrote it, but it was cool. It worked.
Yeah.
Precise, though. It was very old.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really interested. I think it'd be really interesting to see a charm from that era re-implemented with layers and the new modern approach. And, I mean, just measuring the lines of code, I think, would be very interesting. So with that, we have an agenda of 3 things. First, we're going to ask Rick to give us kind of an update of what's going on in Juju Core. And then as April's coming around, the ominous Juju 2.0 is here, and Cheryl's team is working really hard on delivering that. She'll kind of give us a status on what things are. I think we're waiting for Beta 3. Beta 3?
Beta 3.
Last time was Beta 2. Sorry, it all gets kind of blurry. So 5-10 minutes each, just kind of give us a status, tell us what's going on there, what we can look forward to. And then Marco's going to give us a demo of the new charm command, which landed yesterday-ish, 2 days ago?
Yes.
Or in the process of being landed, wink wink, maybe by the time you hear this. And this is a new command that comes as part of Charm Tools that kind of allows publishers to publish development charms, publish stable charms to their customers and users. It gives you ACLs, so you can say, hey, I only want these few people to test my private charms. And it kind of, in the past, you kind of had to file a bug and go through this entire process to get your charm in the charm store, and that was pretty terrible. So the new charm store is going to be more about self-service, about giving control of publishing of the charms to the people who write the charms instead of being gated on a whole bunch of slow people, us. So with that, let's start with Juju Core first, though. Rick, why don't you give us the?
Well, I'll give you guys the big picture. Obviously, we're all heads down, looking at trying to get everything pulled together, all the stories pulled together for the release of 1604 on April 22nd, I think is the correct day. And so, as part of that, the charm command that Marco will talk about pulls together part of the charming publishing side of the story. I think Cheryl's going to mention the actual latest beta coming along and what new things are in that, and there's a few things still left to go. I guess one particular thing I'll kind of call out as of interest is I know a lot of folks have been reaching out about using Juju on top of Maz 2.0, which is really awesome because the Maz 2.0 guys have done a lot of work this cycle, just as we've got a 2.0 and we're got a chance to reinvent some things and to make some big sweeping changes we've wanted to make for a while. The Maz guys are doing that with their 2.0. Of course, that means that all the code that Juju has that talks to Maz has to get updated. And because of the sweeping set of changes, it's not a small chunk of work. So I do want to kind of highlight, I sent an email to the list the other day on this, that we are actively working on trying to get 2.0 support into Juju 2 as fast as we can. But it is going to be one of those down to the wire towards the release kind of things. So be patient with us, and it's going to be a really awesome story. Juju 2.0 and all of its awesomeness on top of the Maz 2.0. We're just going to 2.0 all the things, man. That's just rev all those version numbers for 1604.
Awesome. It's looking pretty good. And we've had now an entire 2 weeks now to play with the LexD provider, now that Juju's landed and everything. And I'm a very, very happy camper. Like, I mean that seriously. If you have a dedicated, really fast drive and you can put your containers on there with ZFS, it's just...
Yeah, there's been a lot of
Those
folks...
of you listening on the channel, go back one video to see what we did, because it was pretty awesome. We love that stuff. So, great. So, anything else other than that? Is there any other big pieces that need to land, or is it pretty much just here comes the runway? You're about to.
Yeah, I think. Well, as far as big pieces landing, I think the one thing that we've got a really awesome model migration feature, which is going to be a beta feature at launch, just because of how big it is to fully be able to lock down and migrate a running controller with all of its models running over here to another one over there. Mm-hmm. It's going to take a little bit more time to get that really solid, but we'll have it kind of in preview as a beta feature. I think that's the only other big, if you were to grab the beta 3 that's coming out shortly, giant missing piece. Mm-hmm. The other stuff is there in some form or another as we flesh out the bugs and get the little user experience things updated and all that. So,
right, and just to be clear,
call me a liar, wherever
that's model migration, right? Not data. Just to be clear,
correct.
Right?
This is the Juju. This is the Juju data, right? Your state data. Right. It's going to be one of the key ways users will be able to do upgrades very safely. You're running infrastructure and you want to be able to migrate rather than upgrade in place and potentially get to a snag spot and have to figure out how do I go from here. Mm-hmm. It'll be much more of a side, bring up a side one and migrate slowly over, and at any point you'll be able to kind of abort out. Oops, that was an error or a message I wasn't expecting.
What do they call that? Red, green, AB, something like that?
I don't know.
My DevOps book is here somewhere. You don't upgrade in place. You just deploy the new thing, test, switch over, back and forth.
But it's only the Juju stuff. Oh, sorry, Shiv.
The model migration is the commands for it are going to be behind a feature flag because it is still very bleeding edge alpha right now. So I would just might not want to do it in any sort of production way right now.
And that term is blue-green deployment by Martin Fowler in 2010. That's what I was thinking about.
Gotcha.
But with that, we could segue over to Cheryl. Now Cheryl will tell us all the. Now that Rick's told us things, you tell us what the reality is.
So, as you had mentioned, we are all busily working on getting a beta 3 out the door right now. So unfortunately, some of our packaging people are on vacation, so we're having to try and figure things out. So we're trying to get it out today for you guys to play with. There are a couple things to be aware of that are coming out. One of the biggest ones that people will notice right away is that now when you bootstrap a controller, you're going to automatically get 2 models generated. The first one is going to be your admin model, and the second one is going to be your default model. And you'll be switched into the default model when you bootstrap. I don't know if you guys have covered this before in the previous office hours.
We have shown it, and we've actually discussed, I wish... What we do is we demo it, and then we deploy stuff, and it's like, oh, nuts. What I should have done is left an empty model as kind of my admin model. Okay. Because then when you want to clean up, now it's kind of not clean. Now I can just throw away that model.
So you'll get switched into this default model right after the bootstrap, and so when you first run Juju status, you'll see it's completely empty. I've already had a couple people get confused about where's my machine 0, and that's now going to be in your admin model. So that's what you'll get when you bootstrap. One of the other really nice things that I think people are going to be excited about is that the LexD provider has been updated to automatically grab images now, so you don't have to sync images when you first do before you do a bootstrap. So that's been awesome. I've been playing with that, and that's been a lot of fun. One of the other things that's been nice is that we have enhanced the reporting of the status for machine provisioning status. So if you are deploying on a Maz and for some reason your Maz deployment never completes, previously Juju would just have that machine in pending forever rather than actually propagating that error up. But you'll actually see an error now, which is great. So that's another good thing that's going to be there. There's also been a lot of work around getting credentials into Juju. I have not played with this personally, but other people have been playing with it, and they said it's a much, much better experience.
It's so awesome, yeah.
Yeah, the add credential stuff will now be an interactive command. You can add things in there, and there's also an auto-loading of credentials. So it'll try and discover credentials from your environment. Another important thing to note, particularly for those using, just only for those using Joyent, we are no longer using the Manta storage. So if you have any Manta keys in your credentials file, you'll see an error when you try and bootstrap. You just need to delete them. Previously, they had been ignored, but for some reason they were required. But if you see an error when you're trying to bootstrap on Joyent, just remove those Manta pieces from your credentials. And I think those are the big things that are coming up in Beta 3.
Yeah, and you guys actually somebody fixed a bug that we ran into the last time we were hanging out, where we're doing a large deployment and its status, the relationships, there's a whole bunch of duplicates over and over again.
Yes.
And we filed it and someone just fixed it. It was like, hey, I just happened to be in the file. It was a one-line fix.
That's
so
Horatio.
thanks
So you
for
can thank
that.
him.
Yes. So just a reminder to everybody out there, file those bugs, even if you feel there's no hope.
Yes,
You'll never
I watch
know.
them. And especially if it's something I personally hit a lot, I try and get it fixed. My hot button right now is the Bootstrap series flag on Bootstrap doesn't work properly. So just be aware that you might hit that. If you specify Bootstrap series is different than your default series, you might see a failure with no matching tools. In which case, just use the default series config, and then you can change it.
Do we still need to upload tools each time with this one?
You will for LexD if you're
Okay.
if you're using a trusty controller, and it's because we are still building our trusty tools with Go 1.2. But I
Okay.
just saw, what was it, yesterday, that Michael Hudson Doyle is getting Go 1.6 into trusty updates, and once that's there, we are going to do the switch over in our builders to build our Juju tools with Go 1.6, which means you would not have to do an upload tools for the trusty controller.
So is that on track for at least 2.0, or do we know when?
Yeah, it's in proposed right now, so everything's just in proposed for a little bit to make sure it doesn't cause any problems. So we're really in the proposed window right now. So if that goes well, I would expect within a week that would try to hit the updates, and then after that we would follow up with our updated builds using 1.6.
So like potentially a beta 4, or will we be doing a retroactive beta 3 build for the agents?
No, I think it would be we would roll with it with probably a beta 4, just as
Awesome.
we have enough stuff to keep ourselves busy for now. So, come on, Marco, work with me.
Figured I'd ask.
It's like, get Rick on the show, make him pay.
I do
and
want
one
to
of the other
mention.
things I
Go
forgot
ahead,
about-
Cheryl.
I'm sorry. Create model. Previously, you had to specify a credentials file, and now that will by default use this inherit
yes.
same credentials from the admin controller.
That was the biggest annoyance I've had.
Yes.
Paper cut.
So that's
That cut
that's
me the
another
sharpest.
improvement for Beta 3.
Yeah, and to be clear, you can still pass alternate credentials if you do want to try to, build stuff to home and away or whatever, but out of the box, it doesn't do that. And I want to call back out the add credential just because the change there is it was in the last beta 2, but it only accepted a file that was your credentials file. And when we say like it's more interactive or whatnot, it's a flat out. Ever use Juju Quick Start where you would say pick your cloud and then it would ask you for the fields of data that it needed to be able to talk to that cloud. You don't need any file creation anymore. So this is kind of the last step of you shouldn't have to touch any files to use Juju anymore. You can add the cloud from the command line. You can add the credential from the command line. It comes with all the clouds ready to go, and so you should be able to just add credentials, pick a cloud, and bootstrap and go. So
Awesome.
Okay, and with that, I have some incoming questions from James Beatty. Although they appear to be OpenStack specific, but I'll run them by you, Rick, and if you can't answer them, then I'll go get Biesner.
okay.
Nova LexD instances plus Cinder volumes? Question mark. Horrible
Good
question. James.
No, I mean I know the Nova LXD support's going in. I don't know specifically whether those. I guess what are you looking for out of this? Are you running them on Cinder, or you want them to?
Yeah, we're gonna need clarification.
All
on
right.
I think I understand the question. Will we be having Cinder volumes mapped to Nova LXD? This sounds like a strictly OpenStack Charms question, though. I don't think that's anything particular to Juju in this question. We don't have any OpenStack Charmers on here, so you should just go bug.
Yeah, I was
Biesner
gonna
up
say
today?
it actually starts to sound like a Juju storage feature where you could pick the storage for something that you would deploy. And I think like Antonio says here in the chat, Juju storage support on top of LexD is probably something that we're gonna come back to.
But you know what Chuck Shirt told me over IRC today is he
What's that?
sort of mostly has live migration of Nova LXD working. That makes you feel any better. He has more questions. OpenStack plus network spaces? ?
That is not going to make 2.0. That is at the top of the roadmap for the next cycle,
Okay.
which we'll be talking about in May, where we have our sprint to go through the roadmap for the next 6 months. So I would definitely expect to see it at the top of that list.
Mm-hmm. Git Launchpad development stunts community engagement and community interaction. Can we have these repos mirrored on github.com/Juju Solutions? So
What
we did.
Well, hold on. What Git Launchpad repos are we talking about?
I think he's talking about when we move the charms over to the upstream OpenStack.
Those are all in Garrett though. Those are all like Git upstream. I don't think they take merge requests against the Git Launchpad ones.
Yeah, I'll follow up with James on that one, see exactly what he wants. Models, controllers, clouds, how well does this model fit on top of public, private, /OpenStack?
So if you have a public or a private OpenStack, it's all the OpenStack provider that Juju knows how to talk to, right? It's about configuration. And so what you would need to do is there's two pieces you would need. You have to add the cloud. So if you had a private OpenStack, for instance, you would run add cloud and tell it where the API endpoints that OpenStack is located at, so that there's a cloud there that you could bootstrap to, right? The next thing you have to do is add your credentials for that cloud, right? So it maps just like any other kind of cloud we have, whether it be a public or a private OpenStack. You have to tell Juju how to talk to it, and then how your account works to talk to that cloud, and then you should be able to Juju Bootstrap, pick the proper cloud. If it's got regions, you could slash the regions and such. So it works just like you would expect it to.
And I think I'll volunteer for this next office hours because I have an orange box here and I should put it to good use. I will set up an OpenStack and use Juju 2 to create the credentials for clouds and stuff and show how that looks.
Yeah, I think it will be great when we do that as well, is kind of give people an example of what it looks like when you have, let's say I have my own private OpenStack.
Yep.
Like, for me specifically, I like to know, okay, like, when you create the controller, ask for cloud name, and then do I want to name this prod? Like, kind of give people like a basic workflow, right? So it's like if I have hybrid, like what kind of naming conventions make sense? That kind of sort of thing, and then put that as the examples instead of name your cloud $.
Yep. No, and I will say some folks definitely have struggled a little bit with the idea that a lot of things get prefixed with local colon when they add their own clouds and things. So I want to kind of call that out ahead of time because it's really about the new multi-userness that Juju has in 2.0. Right, so it's great that you can add a cloud that you call, Rick's home, and give it a good name and all that. However, people can share their clouds with you, right? They can give you access to their Bootstrap controllers and things, right? And so when that happens, the local colon's there to help tell my Rick's awesome from someone else's Rick's awesome, because I'm sure everyone has bootstrapped at some point in time with Rick's awesome as the name of the controller, right? So so when we both do that, we need a way to be able to communicate.
So it's a global namespace, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it definitely helps that. So it's automatically appended, and when you first get started, it looks odd. You're like, why would Juju do that? There's no need to.
Because there's 50 clouds named test.
Right. Right. So we're trying to plan ahead a little bit there. So just watch out for that if that gets too confusing.
Okay, awesome, and that gives us a great subject, I think, for the next subsequent one. So we'll do that.
Yeah, I think we'll do an OpenStack cloud, and we'll do some bootstraps and sharing of credentials back and forth between George and I or someone.
Yeah. So with that, he has some other questions. Before I get to those, though, Cheryl, do you have any other bits? I know you want to get back
to that release.
Get back to that release.
You got something new to play with. Yeah, I don't have anything else, but I'll stick around for these questions if anything applies to me.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for hanging out anyway. That's really great. We should have you more often when it's not so critical every 5 minutes. Okay, next one.
I have a quick question for Cheryl before we end there.
Sure.
Cheryl, you provided some good guidance, and thank you for always having good answers to my questions in Hound Juju. As far as still controllers, is that something that we would see a little bit better in Beta 3, or is there recommended ways if we do get stuck to be able to get unstuck? Or how would you like to see us operate that in Beta 3?
So you're not going to see, there has been improvements in terms of when things are cleaned up out of your controllers and your models cache.yaml file for some kill controller failures. I've been seeing that. You still may get into a situation where you have a record in your controllers or your models that doesn't actually correspond to anything. It's still alive. One of the things that we want to do is provide a way through a command to allow users to clean up stale information from controllers, either because it's something that they've deleted and it's still sticking around there, or because whoever shared a controller with them has now removed that controller and so it doesn't exist anymore. And that's one of the things we're going to look at for Beta 4.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Good question.
There's a few more questions that came in from James Beatty. And these are particularly for the OpenStack Charmers, and these are, I'm going to read them out anyway, just for they're on the record, but I don't think that we have answers for these unless we can drag an OpenStack Charmer in here a little bit. So the first one is Ceph Radis Gateway Charm. There's a non-existent auth endpoint. For the same charm, there's also a default code of 30 gigs that you cannot modify. These are problematic. And there's also a link to a bug on Keystone. I'm not sure about answers for these. Sorry, James. We usually have an OpenStack Charmer in here, but I can't seem to scrounge one up, probably because it's holiday for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are in Europe, and Europe's off today and Monday for Easter holiday and such, so it's not the best day to ask them questions for sure.
But I will make sure that we follow up with them. And actually, James, if you'd like, you could just email the Juju list on these last 3 questions, which I think are good. Get some more eyes on them.
We got some recent work and stuff, so.
Oh, maybe that was addressed there in the next release of the charm. So I know that,
1604.
Antonio, the OpenStack Charmers have a release coming up at the end of April, right?
Yep, 1604, and then 1607, then 1610.
Okay,
so
cool.
There's some changes coming up there, but we can be able to get with some folks who do some common development there. Chris Holcomb and Chris McNaughton can be able to answer exactly those changes out there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and remember when you're explaining the new charm stuff, explain channels because that will directly affect the OpenStack Charmer stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to explain in a minute.
All right. And with that, we can move on to Marco's demo.
What a great segue, George. So I'm going to
segue, if anything.
I'm going to share my screen for a second.
Okay, show us what you got. Now, I had thought about explaining how the Charm Store works now, but then I realized that's really embarrassing and horrible, so we're just going to pretend it's always been like this and just start from scratch. So Marco will, well, perfect. Good split. Looks good over here.
All right, so is the font size okay for everyone? Can everyone see everything all right? I'm going to take no answer as a
yeah,
as a
looks
good
okay
answer.
here.
Yep, you're fine.
All right, cool. So I just recently wrote a charm from scratch using layers. For anyone who's ever been to this website, it's basically for people who don't have bundles in the store, the ability to render bundles like you would see in the store. So it's just a remote loader. We use this a lot in cabs for the benchmarking stuff. So if you benchmark a bundle, we can actually show you the drawing for that bundle. So I recently had to charm this one up, and I figured I'd walk through what the process looks like now from going to start to finish. So the first thing is there is a new charm command. This charm command is quite special because it's a split from the previous charm tools. So for a long time, we've had the charm namespace and charm tools, and we've just been kind of doing a bunch of ad hoc development, just a strictly charm development focused stuff. The Juju UI engineering team has come and created a whole bunch of new commands for the charm namespace that make it really awesome for anyone that's doing any sorts of charm development or looking to get into charm development. And this is a whole new way to interact with the charm store. So if anyone's ever had to push a Bazaar branch and has wondered why it takes 4 hours for it to show up in the charm store, all this kind of goes away with the next release, this Charm Tools Charm 2.0 kind of name. So it's in kind of release candidate testing right now, so you'll have to add 2 PPAs to get it. First, you'll need PPA Juju Stable, and then you'll want Juju PPA Devel. These two PPAs combined on your machine will get you the charm command. So you can just apt-get install charm, and then charm gives you a whole bunch of options now. Some of these may seem familiar, things like charm build, charm create, charm proof, charm test. These are kind of commands that were carried over from the previous charm tools, but there are a whole suite of new charm commands in here, including things like charm push and pull, which is what I'm mostly going to be going over today. Pull and push is right here as well. So with these commands, this gives it so that you can really easily, and stuff that we've been hinting at and talking about for a while now, just push stuff to the charm store and make it almost instantly available. So for that, I'm going to kind of demonstrate what the workflow would look like. First off, I want to make a call out that there's been lots of work on Charm tools to make it layers and 2.0 ready. So by default, when you Charm create something, it will create you a layer instead of a Charm boilerplate. So if you go into Hello World, this is actually a layer boilerplate instead of the previous boilerplate, which was the Charm boilerplate. So this is us getting ready for a 2.0 world and a Charm build, Charm reactive world. So in here we've got kind of the Hello World of writing your first Charm layer. So that's something that's come out in Charm tools recently. So you can still use Charm Create. We still have all the previous templates. So if you're looking to switch up, we have reactive Python and reactive Bash. These are the Bash and Python equivalents of the new reactive charming pattern, but also the previous Python, Ansible, Chef, Python Basic, PowerShell, and Bash templates if you want to use the previous, more classic style of charming. Both of those are still acceptable forms, so we highly recommend the new reactive pattern. So I went ahead and did that a little while ago. I created a Charm SVG layer. A couple things with this one. First of all, why are these here? For some reason I got a bunch of deps directories. Hold on a second. Okay. So this is just a reactive layer. It's a Charm SVG layer. It builds off of the basic apt UWSGI and Nginx layer. It provides this web interface for generating bundles. Something else I wanted to bring up is it also uses resources. So in the metadata now, I've defined not only the resources it consumes, in this case it's a binary for building the SVG from the Juju SVG library, as well as the very simple web app. It's also a multi-series charm. This will work on Trusty and Xenial. So these are a couple of new features that are coming out in the 2.0 beta. Very soon I'll have to be slapping a Min Juju version on here because this only really works with 2.0. So a couple things that we've done with the charm build process is first, let me just do this. You charm build, you'll likely be getting these errors coming up soon. This is in order to enable a key feature that I'll show off in a second. So let me go ahead and add a repo here to the layer. Basically, it's saying that you should identify where the upstream of these layers live. Let me go into layer.yaml and add this. Okay, I'm going to do another charm build, so we get that. That warning will go away now. And so I've got my latest build of my charm SVG. So presumably I've deployed it, or maybe I haven't deployed it yet, but I want to start publishing it so that I can start sharing it with everyone. So the first thing you'll want to do is make sure you're logged into the charm command. So one of the commands that charm has is charm who am I and charm login. So I'm going to do charm login. It's going to prompt me to log in. This is going to be logging into the. I've already logged in, so it's not going to ask me to log in again. Oh, never mind. Let me go into this container I prepared for just this scenario.
For those of you wondering, in LXD containers, if you don't explicitly mention a name, it auto-generates one. That's why.
So this is a container that I've just run. I've already added the stable and develop PPA. I just apt get installed charm, so it's going to run through and get me that charm command and all of its crazy deps. And this is a Trusty machine, but this will work on Xenial, Trusty, Wiley, are the ones who we're supporting off the bat. So we're in the process of getting this into the Xenial archive. So in the future, for everyone running Xenial forward, you'll just apt get install charm, and magic will happen. For those previous releases, we'll be working to see if we can't get it in the Trusty, but we'll be providing a stable PPA to continue that trend. So this took a little longer than I thought it was going to take, but this should take just another hot second to unpack. We'll log in. Just to show you what the login looks like. I have two-factor auth enabled on my account. A lot of people do, so this is something to also be aware of. But if you don't, there's ways to get around that as well. I'm impatient. All right, cool. So I've got a charm command again. Charm login. It'll prompt you for your username. This trip you up a little bit. It's your Ubuntu SSO username, which is going to be probably your email address. In my case, it's this. Your password, and then your two-factor code. But if that works, you should be able to type "Who am I?" And depending on your count, you'll either have very little or a lot show up. Like I do, I happen to be a member of a lot of groups in the Ubuntu SSO, so those will all show up here. And it's important to note these groups because these are all memberships that I can actually push to Charm Spaces. So I'm going to show that in a second. So by default, this is who I am, Marco Ceppi. Pretty straightforward, but I'm also a member of the Charmers group, and as a result of that, I've been in a lot of other groups as well. So that's how you log in. That's how you check who you are. Back out into here. I'm still logged in here, I think. Yep. Okay, cool. So I'm going to push this up. So all I got to do is charm push, and I'm going to push this charm here, charm SVG, but not that. That's the layer. I want to go to the build output. So here's the build output. It looks more like a charm. So charm push this to, and I can push it to things like Marco Ceppi, but for this I'm going to actually push it to Juju Demo, which is a group that I'm a part of. If you look at charm, who am I? One of the many pieces of information out here is the Juju Demo group. So I'm just going to charm push Juju Demo, trusty charm SVG. That's what I want to call it in the charm store. I type that, and this is the waiting part.
You're in a lot of groups.
I am. So some of them are slightly more embarrassing.
You know,
All right, there we go. So that's how long it takes to get a charm into the charm store. We're down to like seconds, and I'm probably hitting my upstream limits of both sharing on Google's Hangouts and stuff, but that's essentially it. So if I look now, you would think, I know, I'm getting there, man.
All right.
Yeah.
I know.
So you would think, I was about to say, you would think this is done, so you should be able to go to something like /u/Juju Demo, see a charm there, but there's nothing here. So if I logged into the storefront, I'd see it, and that's because there's a couple things that Charm Publish introduces. The first is ACLs, and that's what George was alluding to earlier, is that each item, by default, will only be readable and writable by the group that it's pushed to. So only anyone in the Juju Demo group should be able to see that. But also, there's a new introduction of channels into the Charm store. So by default, whenever you push, it actually becomes like an unhinged revision. It's just sitting there in the ether waiting to be associated somewhere. So because I haven't published it anywhere, it's not actually tied to anything. It's there, but not quite. This is just the ability for you to start pushing up revisions. But what I could do is I could associate a revision with a channel. So for instance, I could say charm publish. I want to publish. Tab completion is going to screw me up until that lands. And I want to publish this revision here, which is what it spat back out to me and said, this is revision 0 of the charm to channel development. So what that says now is this charm revision lives in that development channel. So if I do a charm, what is it? Charm, not charm info, charm show.
It doesn't show. I filed a bug on this yesterday, actually. There's not a good way of tracking and seeing that development channel is true. What you could do right now that you couldn't do a minute ago, you could Juju deploy this charm and say, give me the -- channel equals development, and it would go find the latest published development channel revision, and it would use that charm to deploy.
Oh, I see. Last time I did it after I pushed. So let me just, I'm going to assume that this is good. I'm just going to go ahead and push it to, not stable. What's the other channels? Development and
public or not public. Stable.
Let's ask the help. output.
See,
Stable
that's-
channel. The
Sorry.
stable channel.
That's not a good sign that we had to. Wasn't that obvious?
All right, so now that I push in the table channel, if I do show, I'll get information back about it. This is where the ACLs come into play. So this is a whole bunch of output, but the important things I want to show is that it lists that I had resources attached to it. To pick that up. It also shows me download information, which isn't very impressive right now, but I hope that in the future that number grows a little bit. It also shows me the channel information, which I think is still in progress of being able to show development stuff, so this is both development and stable version. But the important thing I want to show is the permissions. Right now, only people in the Juju demo group can read and write to it, which is problematic because if I go to my landing page, I want to share this with someone outside of the Juju demo group, no one can see it here because I'm not logged in. Now, if I logged into the Juju Charms UI here, I'll see the charm show up because I'm in the Juju demo group, but that's not what I want to do. I want to be able to share it with people. So if I want to share it with a specific person, all I would have to do is charm grant Juju demo trusty charm SVG, and I could grant it to read access.
You test something for me? Take the trusty out of that. I don't think you need the trusty, but save you a little bit of typing, I think.
And George, that's your Launchpad user ID, right, George?
Yes.
So what I've just done is I've given George read access to here. If I was smart, I would have had him log into the Charm Store so he can see it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a problem. Oh man, I goofed this one up again. Oh no.
Did you just remove your own access?
Yeah, I did. I said it to him. I didn't add myself to it.
You did this last time.
I know. Oh, look, Chuck did this last time, but they fixed it, so it's not a problem anymore.
Right.
I basically made it so that I could write to the object, but not read the object. Thankfully, I reset the permissions, so instead of it now just being George, it's now everyone again. There's a way to do. Let's look at the real quickly. Marco reads the instructions one more time. Let's look at the grant command. Set. I'm using set really wrong. So you should never really use set.
Right.
If I just ran this with George, it would be everyone and George specifically.
Right. You're granting access to George. Set
Right. Before I was just like,
set is for
screw
changing.
everyone, only these people.
We need like serious ACL training. This is like the second time this has happened.
Well, it's new, but it's one of those. If you didn't have set, what would happen is you would have a charm with 10 people in it, and if you wanted to revoke all those, you have to run 10 different revoke command kind of things to do it. So set is like forget what's there and make it this, right?
Right.
And I like that. I'm all good with that.
Yeah.
So,
Just we have
See,
a we have
not
a
me.
reason.
I'm different. I prefer like an append.
Yeah, so it'll append by default. Using the set flag was wrong on my part.
Right.
But now you see George and everyone. So if I were to remove everyone, George would still have read access to this. And just so that I don't screw myself out of this again, I'm going to add Juju demo back. Okay. So, but the important thing is if I refresh the web page now, if anyone goes to this web page, the charm will show up because everyone has access to read this now. So here it is. It's published. It's Juju deployable. If you Juju deploy Juju demo /charm SVG, all the pieces are here. So I was able to publish that pretty quickly to the store, and the iterative process follows the same kind of wave. I can run charm build again or make modifications. I can charm push the development channel and iterate in the development channel. And then when I'm ready and when people have tested it, we can move that reference to the stable channel, and then everyone else will get that goodness. So it really helps streamline a lot of processes that I know people have been doing by creating a development user group altogether or trying to use branches directly in bundles for deploying and testing. This kind of crystallizes that, makes it really nice and easy to manage, despite me still struggling with some of the commands.
Yeah. I think that what we really try to focus on is as soon as it's pushed, there's a revision assigned to it, and a bot or anyone could who has access could go and grab that revision and run CI tests automatically and such on it, right? And then if those tests were to pass, this is set up such that you could have a bot go in and then publish the revision that just passed the tests into the development channel. which maybe it would sit in, kind of like the Ubuntu archive proposed, where it might sit for a little bit, make sure it was good, and that that people had a chance to try it or whatnot. Before then, you would go from the development channel into the stable channel. At that point, anyone who has that charm deployed would see it as an available upgrade when they run Juju status, or if they were to run Juju upgrade charm, they would get only the things in that stable channel, right? So it kind of lets us have, all the workflow you could want with CI infrastructure, test groups that try things out manually and do some manual QA, up to what actually gets sent out to the end users who are running this stuff in production and are obviously sensitive to not wanting to accidentally test out something that wasn't ready yet.
Absolutely. So the last couple of things that I want to go over are the ability to set additional information about a charm. So one thing that we have here is the ability to set where the bug URL and where the home page is for this charm. So I can do something like charm set Juju demo charm SVG, set the home page equal to and the bugs URL equal to github.com/ so those will be set, and those will be surfaced in the store as well.
And you can charm show those, right? So charm show bugs URL, for instance, right? I think you need the charm name first, and then the.
Yeah, cool.
How instant does the stuff show up as soon as he runs this command, Rick? Is it literally I switch to my browser and hit F5, or is there?
Yeah, no, it is.
I know in the past it was like ingested.
No. Yeah, well, because right.
So here they are. So George, they're here right now on the home page.
Okay.
There's the home page, which will link to svg.juju.solutions.
Wonderful.
And then here is the submit a bug, which will go to my GitHub page. Oh, I fat fingered the URL. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's interesting that happened, right? Because we are kind of taking ourselves out of the equation, right?
Right.
Before we would go through this whole kind of rigmarole, and it's like you had to wait. Now it's like, you know what? We're going to step out of the way, give you the tools to self-publish your stuff, right? And then
it's very key that different developers working on different charms feel at home with the tools they use. Some folks will be on GitHub this, some will be on their private Garrett, the OpenStack Garrett instance stuff that. Others will be in Launchpad with their BZR, So we very much are focused on letting you do your development the way you do it in your community, and make it as simple and smooth as possible to have a good workflow getting those charms into the store. And less hurdles. If I don't want to put my charm in the store because I don't want this or I don't want that, or I would have to do this and that, what I mean? So hopefully this will remove most of the hurdles folks have with working with the store, be it a time issue, a tooling issue, or just a workflow issue.
Exactly. And so while you guys were talking, I went and fixed those links, and they're already live. So the fact that you can respond, it feels much better. I know why we've been doing it the way we've been doing it for so long, and when we first started, it made a lot of sense and worked really well for us, but did not operate very well at scale. This idea of constantly polling to bring in data. So this more push model, this more instant interaction, feels much better, and it's something that I, as a charm author, really enjoy. So there's a couple more commands I wanted to go over. The new charm command also supports the ability to push terms and push resources to the store. Some of those bits haven't quite landed on the server side yet, so the commands exist but don't do anything just yet. Most of the charm tools commands are there, but as a new one I want to highlight real quickly, one that comes with some bits of contention. So the first thing is you can download charms. This is great. If you're looking to do an offline deployment, you can charm pull any charm from the store. For instance, I could just charm pull WordPress, and that will download WordPress here in my directory. And I've got WordPress as I would be deploying it out to the store. Some important things, so this strips out things like VCS information and stuff. It's just charm store version of WordPress 4 archived locally. So if you wanted to, you could do something like Juju deploy /WordPress. And that will just work with Juju 2.0. It makes it really nice if you wanted to you have a DMZ problem where you can't reach out to the store and stuff, you can download them on a laptop and bring them into the network or on a jump drive, and that way you don't have to go and fetch where they come from upstream, and maybe upstream is a layer that gets built every once in a while that's not anywhere you can get from an archive perspective.
Question, Marco.
Yeah.
Where's the VCS information when you do this?
There is no VCS information.
Haha. That was a leading question.
Thanks, George. I really appreciate it. And Charm Pull is awesome. It's a great way to quickly get what's in the Charm store and pull it down. Especially when you want to start hacking on things. How did they solve this problem in this Charm? You could just pull it down if you don't like poking at the
This
web
is Charm
interface.
wget, man. Yep.
Yeah, essentially, yes. Charm wget a payload. Something else that we added was a pull source command. This one's a bit interesting. It has different code paths depending on what you run it with. So pull source will essentially pull the source for whatever you feed it, and this could be a charm. In the event the charm is just a normal classic charm, it does whatever charm pull does. It downloads that archive, essentially. In the case of things like a charm that's written with layers, it will find the topmost layer that charm was built with and download the layer instead. And then you could also download explicitly just the layers interfaces directly. So this is a bit of a attempt to bridge the Charm store with the interface and layer stuff that we've been working on. So this is the first pass at this. So the idea is if I charm pull charm SVG, well, Juju demo charm SVG, I will get what I upload to the store, which is that giant built charm artifact. So here it is in its full glory. It is amazing. But if I wanted to get the layer for this, let me just go here. I could do charm pull source Juju demo charm SVG. And what this will do is it will actually clone. Oh, I have to not have the charm SVG already downloaded. It'll actually go and download the Charm SVG layer. So now I have the layer itself, and it actually pulls it with the VCS information in place. This isn't 100% ideal, obviously, because Git remotes. It's the remote that is the upstream's remote, and not a way not anything to be forked or anything like that. But it'll download its VCS. So if it's got a Mercurial address or a Bazaar or a Git repo, it'll pull down that as best as it can. And it tries to get you the topmost layer that actually built that charm, which is the more interesting thing from a source perspective than the actual built artifact.
Yeah. And the old way you had to Google for that exact charm name, find it in the store, right? And then for a while we sort of passed around telling everyone, hey, in your README, make sure you put, where the source code lives, right? Now we can say...
Well, so to be clear, this pulls back to when you added repo into your layers.yaml file, correct?
Yes.
I'm guessing that's where it's pulled
from. I wanted you to loop around to that again.
Yeah, standardizing that as a charm author, if you put that address in, then that enables other people to do this pull source command, which they could not otherwise do to help bug fixing and stuff. And so,
right, and there's a couple of things we try to be as smart as possible about it. The charm pull source command as a first pass is here, but we're looking at ways that we can make it so that having an explicit repo key wouldn't necessarily be required, where we could derive that at a build time of the charm. But for now, the repo key is a way to get around it. We get the feature in, and we can iterate on it for 16.10. In addition to charms, it also is just a great way to pull down sources for layers and interfaces. If you don't want to spend the 3 seconds going to the interface website and then clicking on the repo key and then cloning or forking or downloading, depending on where you are. This one's in GitHub. A few of them are not. For instance, the app layer is actually in... wrong key.
I feel, Marco, now that you're bringing this up, we should
Yeah.
definitely make this a should in policy. Don't you agree?
Um,
Not a must. I'm saying it's just it's convenient when you could pull source and get what you want, man.
So it definitely should be a should. So this pull source basically gives you that ability. Same thing. You pull layers. This is a Git layer on GitHub. The app layer is in Bazaar or is in Launchpad. I don't know if it's a Bazaar or Git. So these will just get pulled down into my temp directory, which is a terrible place to put these. But these are the Git repos. So you can start hacking on them, doing whatever you need to, and that source control tool to propose those patches back upstream, and poke around at them from the command line as well. That's the majority that I had from the charm command. There are a couple other commands that I couldn't quite go over. I think in the subsequent office hours we'll go over a couple more things like resources and terms. I want to get the initial stuff out and let everyone know this is available now for testing. It is pretty freaking stable. I haven't had any problems. I've been running this for a couple weeks now in guilty silence. So everyone who's watching this, I'll send out a subsequent mail for call for testing. It's in the develop PPA. This is what we'll be putting in Xenial, so anyone who can help us find any issues now before we go for that final push into the archive would be much appreciative.
Yep. And it goes right along. If you already are following the 2. Beta using the develop PPA, you've got access to this charm command. I would encourage you to go ahead and try it and use it. The one thing we'll say is once you push a charm up with this tool, the charm store will stop ingesting it from Launchpad. So you can take over an existing charm that's already there that you're managing